Happy Wednesday to you. Today on the Locked On Blue Jay podcast, we open the episode with this week's Blue Jays trivia. Second segment, I submit to you my case between the All-Star breaks of 2010 and 2011, so the second half of 2010 and the first half of 2011, where Jose Bautista played 157 games total, just like the 157 games we saw last season from Aaron Judge. I think there's a case to be made that Joey Bats' run is at least as good as impressive. It's the same amount of games, 157, and I'm going to submit to you my case that it's at least as impressive, if not more impressive, than the historic and epic 2022 that we just saw from Aaron Judge. And in the final segment, we're going to get set for Aaron Nola versus Kevin Gausman.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ballard, Locked On Blue Jays. Yes, indeed, been locked on Toronto Blue Jay baseball my entire life. Have a definite passion for Toronto Blue Jay baseball. A love, I hope you would agree, a knowledge as well about Toronto Blue Jay baseball. It's a big deal for me. It's a big deal for my family. So as always, I want to thank you for taking part of your day to talk Toronto Blue Jay baseball with me. The Locked On Blue Jay podcast, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And reminder that all Toronto Blue Jay action this season available for you on Sirius XM. If you're taking in today's Locked On Blue Jays podcast episode via the Locked On Blue Jay podcast YouTube page, hello and thank you for that. Shout out to Sean O'Kane, a new subscriber. Thanks for hitting that subscribe button there, Sean. Getting a lot of Seans recently, actually. So shout outs to the Seans. So a couple Craigs as well. Hey, Craig's got to stick together, right? So thank you. If you haven't hit that subscribe already, please do. Please hit that like, that comment as well. And to the everydayers helping make the Locked On podcast grow, through the actual audio, through where you're getting your podcast, and you're making the Locked On Blue Jay podcast your first podcast listen every day. I see you and I thank you. The podcast numbers are doing extremely well. I've seen some growth that I'm really proud of, and it's a lot of work making a daily Blue Jay podcast, no doubt about that. But to have the growth and to see some success, that's only possible through your support. That's why I open every single show by thanking you for spending part of your day talking Blue Jay baseball with me. And for those of you that are helping the Locked On Blue Jay podcast grow by putting it in the hands of, I always joke, your Uber driver, but your family, your friends, you see somebody with a Blue Jay bumper sticker, like whatever, you see a fellow Blue Jay fan, please and thank you. Let them know about the Locked On Blue Jays podcast. Now, let's have some fun today with Blue Jays trivia. We normally like to have Trivia Tuesday, but you saw yesterday's episode was so packed, and that's happened a couple times this season, right? Where we've had Trivia Tuesday, Wednesday edition, because Tuesday was so packed. But this way, and we always sort of have with the twist of who the Blue Jays are playing. So today, the trivia questions will have a Blue Jays and Phillies twist to them. So I'll ask 5 questions, one through 5. So you can pause if you want after the 5 questions are asked, if you want to think about an answer or two, and then press play as right away I'll go through the 5 answers. Trivia, I really enjoy doing this. I have a lot of fun with this. So let's get into it. Question number 1. Now, this is the second time this season that the Phillies and Blue Jays are playing a mini little 2-game series. And each time it's been on the Tuesday and the Wednesday. So the Phillies have been on my mind, on a previous trivia Tuesday. So we have had a lot of questions previously about the 93 Blue Jays Phillies World Series, but I do have one more here for today. So we know, of course, touch 'em all, Joe. You'll never hit a bigger home run in your life. Tom Cheek with the epic call, Joe Carter with the epic home run. Blue Jays win Game 6 on the Joe Carter walk-off. Yes, indeed. But that score was, at the time, it was 5-4 Phillies in the bottom of the 9th there. Now, Joe Carter's home run was a 3-run home run to make the final 7-5. We know that Ricky Henderson led off that inning, so he scores officially the tying run, and we know that Joe Carter scores officially the 7th run. Who scores officially the 6th and winning run in that fateful Game 6? Question number 2. What popular outfielder led the league in hits for the Phillies in 2014, then in 2015 was traded at the trade deadline to the Blue Jays, where he would get off to, I think it was like an 0-for-13 start. You remember? Oh boy. But he would hit .338 for the Blue Jays the rest of the way through 2015. That was a 2015 Blue Jay playoff run, right? Remember that? So what popular outfielder led the Phillies in hits 2014, 2015, comes to the Blue Jays, gets off to a horrible start, but kills it down the stretch for the Toronto Blue Jays? Question number 3. Jose Bautista, Joey Bats. A lot of you may not remember here, but he played his final 27 games of his career as a Philadelphia Philly. Now, how many home runs in those last 27 games of his career? How many home runs did Jose Bautista hit? And this is a multiple choice. Was it 2? Was it 5? Was it 10? Question number 4. In 2018, this righty made 11 relief appearances for the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, 2018, that was season 5 of 7 on the big league level for this pitcher. His first 4 seasons on the big league level were with the Toronto Blue Jays. He went 30-21. That's not bad at all, but the ERA was 4.92. Yikes. Now, we know David Price would become the ace of the 2015 Toronto Blue Jays, but this pitcher was actually the opening day starter that season. Now, he would never pitch in the playoffs for the Blue Jays. I don't even think if in my mind's eye, if memory serves, I don't even think he was literally even on the playoff roster for the Texas or the Kansas City playoff series in 2015. But who was that right-handed pitcher? And our 5th and final question for this week's Toronto Blue Jay trivia on the Locked On Blue Jay podcast. This lefty began his 15-season MLB career with the Philadelphia Phillies, and that includes finishing second in Rookie of the Year voting in 2009. That was Roy Halladay with the Phillies in 2009. They went to the World Series, that was just before that, right? Lost to the Yankees, 4-2. But this pitcher, as a rookie that season in 2009 for the Phillies, he went 12-4, 2.93 ERA, and he pitched in 7 playoff games for the 2009 Phillies. He would go on to be a two-time Toronto Blue Jay, and in his first season back, the second time around, his first season back with the Toronto Blue Jays, he went 20-4. Wow. Who is that pitcher? Okay, hit that pause if you need to. And I'm going to rewind it, and let's go through the questions, and we'll get the answers here. So we asked, Joe Carter's epic home run, right? The touch 'em all Joe. We know that ended the World Series gloriously in '93 for the Toronto Blue Jays against these Philadelphia Phillies. We know Ricky Henderson was a leadoff man. Everydayers will know we've deep dived Ricky Henderson's at bat to start off the bottom of the 9th as being one of the epic and underrated at bats in Toronto Blue Jay franchise history. It set the entire stage. I won't have time to get into it now, but epic at bat. Even went through some of that the other day with Tim McAuliffe. Epic at bat. So we know Ricky Henderson scores officially the 5th run, 5-4, 3-run home run. Henderson ties it 5-all. Joe Carter would come around eventually. He's jumping around the bases, right, as everyone's going nuts, of course, but he would be officially the 7th run. But who scored the 6th and thus winning run? Paul Molitor. Remember that? Paul Molitor. Paul Molitor had gotten a single. Of course, he did what he did. He got a hit in that bottom of the 9th, and he was on first base for that Joe Carter epic home run. Now, what popular outfielder led the league in hits for the Phillies in 2014, then came to the Blue Jays at the trade deadline in 2015, got off to a terrible start, but then was absolute fire down the stretch for the Toronto Blue Jays? Do you remember? I hope you do. I think you probably did. Ben Revere. Then we asked multiple choice, 2, 5, or 10. Jose Bautista finished his career, played 27 games for the Phillies at the very, very end. That's how he ended his career. In those 27 games, did he hit 2, did he hit 5, or did he hit 10 home runs? Well, if you're thinking it was the end of his career, so it was probably a low number like 2, you're right on the money. Exactly right. It was just the 2. Shout out to you if you thought it was 10. If you're that big of a Jose Bautista fan that you thought he ended his career with 10 home runs in 27 games, then you are admirably a glass half full person. I love that. Question number 4, we asked this righty in 2018, he made 11 appearances for the Phillies. That's the Phillies tie. But most of the time he pitched with the Toronto Blue Jays, including being their opening day starter in 2015. And by the time 2015 would end, he was out. David Price was in. Who was that pitcher? Had to recently step away from the Blue Jays, because remember, they brought him back in spring training, this past spring training. Do you remember that was? Drew Hutchison. And our final question, this lefty began his 15-season MLB career with the Phillies, second in Rookie of the Year voting. Would go on to be twice. He would have 2 different stints with the Toronto Blue Jays, and on that second stint, he came back. It was 2016. Was the second time he came back with the Blue Jays. That was his first season. The second time back, he went 20-4 for the 2016 Toronto Blue Jays. One of the more underrated, we might have to do a throwback Thursday on this season. One of the more underrated seasons in Toronto Blue Jays franchise history. I think David Wells had another 21 season. That was just huge. That was underrated for the Jays as well. But this particular answer, J.A. Happ. Now, coming right up on the Locked On Blue Jay podcast, we're going to take a look at Jose Bautista versus Aaron Judge. I'm really excited about this segment. I'm going to present a case. I'm looking forward to seeing your comments, see what your take is here on that subject matter that we're about to get into. But first, wanted to mention a pretty exciting new sponsor, a new Twitter-like space for sports fans. It's called Bunches. Bunches is a new app. It's built just for sports fans. You can chat with sports fans, fellow sports fans in real time. You just go to the Apple Store and download Bunches. And I think you're going to enjoy the conversations with other Locked On sports fans. And the Locked On MLB group chat is there. It's on Bunches. So if you go now, you can connect with other baseball fans. You can chat with your favorite team fans as well, your fellow fans as well. And you can keep up with the latest MLB news. Download the Bunches app today, and when you do, our friends at Bunches have featured the Locked On MLB Bunch in the Discover tab. So check out that Discover tab. Join the Locked On MLB Bunch community on Bunches today. Now, a lot of Jose Bautista on the minds of Toronto Blue Jay fans lately, right? Of course, deservingly so. Well, today I want to deep dive what I consider the best stretch of hitting the Toronto Blue Jays franchise ever had, and dare I say it compares very well with the epic and historic 2022 that we saw Aaron Judge put together, mere months ago, right? From after the All-Star break in 2010 to before the All-Star break in 2011, Jose Bautista, so the second half of 2010 and the first half of 2011, Jose Bautista played 157 games. He had 60 home runs during that span. Well, last season, Aaron Judge played 157 games. He hit 62 home runs during that span. And I'm going to submit to you that the stretch from Jose Bautista there is as impressive from what we saw last season from Aaron Judge. Now, I mean, certainly cleaner to have it just be season versus season comparison. But I mean, again, we're going to look at the second half of 2010 and the first half of 2011, and it's the same amount of games generated between these two historic sluggers. So I do want to deep dive this. And I think it's worth mentioning that, Jose Bautista, he puts together this epic run that we're going to look at here. And there's months between, right? It's the second half of 2010 and the first half of 2011. So I submit to you that's part of why I think this is as impressive, if not more impressive, for Jose Bautista, because pitchers and opposing teams, opposing franchises, opposing pitching coaches, bullpen coaches, catchers, you name it, all kinds of people had months between 2010 and 2011 to prepare for Jose Bautista to be much better against him in 2011. And Jose Bautista took all that preparation, took all those game plans specifically designed to slow him down. He crumpled them up in a paper and he threw them out the window. He was epic. Dare I say he was historic. Of Judge's 62 home runs last season, 13 of those 62 gave the Yankees the lead for good in a game. Well, of the Bautista 61 home runs, again, you had 30 to close the second half of 2010, 31 to open the first half of 2011 in those 157 games. There's the 61 home runs for Joey Bats. So Judge had 13 home runs that gave the Yankees the lead for good, while Bautista, of his 61 home runs, 12 gave the Toronto Blue Jays the lead in that game for good. And these weren't good Toronto Blue Jay teams either, right? Like, those are significant home runs. But if Bautista doesn't hit those home runs, did the Jays even win those games? I know Aaron Judge was the MVP. And listen, bottom line, I'm not trying to take away anything from what we saw, by the way, from Aaron Judge's 2022. That was just an incredible season. I think we're all Blue Jay fans, so we're Yankee haters, yes, but we can all admire Aaron Judge, the person. We can all admire the historic season he put together. Just incredible season in 2022. So I'm certainly not trying to take anything away, but I'm just saying I really think that Bautista's stretch of the same amount of games, the 157, is massively comparable. So far, we have the early small advantage for Aaron Judge because he did have the one more home run, and he did have the one more home run that would ultimately give the Yankees, his team, the lead, and they would win that game. However, of Judge's 62 home runs, there were 3 times in the 8th inning or later where a Judge home run would win the game for the New York Yankees. Now, that includes a 3-run walk-off. You'll probably remember against Jordan Romano. There was a walk-off against Scott Barlow as well, who I know he's not good this season, but last season was very good as the closer for the Kansas City Royals. So 3 times of the 62 Judge home runs, he hit a home run in the 8th inning or later to win the game for the Yankees. Well, of Bautista's 61 homers, there were 8 such examples of the 8th inning or later in the game, 8th, 9th, extra innings, whatever it is, where Joey Bats hit the game-winning home run for the Toronto Blue Jays, and that includes one off of Joe Nathan, stellar closer during that time for the Minnesota Twins, and it includes one off of King Felix Hernandez. I mean, we've got Judge off of Romano and Barlow, but we've got Bautista off of Joe Namath and King Felix, and again, 3 of Judge's home runs were game winners, 8th inning or later. 8 for Bautista. Last season, Aaron Judge homered off of some notable pitchers. Now, Alek Manoah's in there. I know. It was 2022 Alek Manoah, though, so we know that was legit. Judge last season homered off of Shohei. Judge last season homered off of Shane McClanahan and Jason Adam, a couple studs on that Tampa Bay team, and he homered off of Max Scherzer. And of course, I'd mentioned the Romano and the Scott Barlow. Now, all due respect to all the other pitchers that Aaron Judge took deep last season, I mean, it's a list of mid relief pitchers. It's a list of mid starting pitchers. They all count. And again, not trying to take that away from Aaron Judge. If you're truly so much better than the opposition, then you should be taking care of business against those lesser pitchers. Yes. But again, this is a direct comparison because let's look at how Jose Bautista did with his 61 home runs. What notable pitchers was he taking deep? Well, in this day and age, 2010, 2011, James Shields was a stud, but Bautista took him out of the ballpark twice. We know how good David Price was. Bautista took Price out of the park twice. In this day and age, John Lester was one of the best pitchers in baseball. Jose Bautista took him deep twice. Jonathan Papelbon, the star closer, home run. Rookie of the year, Jeremy Hellickson, home run for Bautista. Max Scherzer, and really shout out to Max Scherzer's longevity, right? He's on both of these lists right here. We're talking about one's from 2022 and one's from 2010, 2011. Like, shout out to Max Scherzer. Greatness measured over time. Max Scherzer, wow. Justin Verlander is on the list of home runs of pitchers who Jose Bautista got during these two seasons. Yeah. Justin Verlander. Roy Halladay, the Doc, yes, indeed, pitching for the Philadelphia Phillies. Jose Bautista during this time span took him deep. And we mentioned Joe Nathan and King Felix. So a couple of who's who on Aaron Judge's list, but a ton of who's who on Jose Bautista's list. And I mean, Jose Bautista's pitching or hitting all these in a time where you could pitch around him. Aaron Judge, I mean, who's as good as Aaron Judge in this Yankee lineup? Nobody, but he's hitting at the very top of that lineup. It's still tougher to pitch around him. Jose Bautista, there was nothing after him. You could have pitched around him, but these pitchers still, Bautista got the best of them time and time again. Each batters, in this comparison here, they each had 2 grand slams. Now, watch the breakdown here. Again, I think this is very interesting here. I hope you're enjoying this. The Aaron Judge last season hit 311. Jose Bautista, in the span we're talking about, in his 157 games, hit 312. So I would submit to you the overall home runs, 62-61, slight advantage Judge. The home runs that gave the team the lead for good, 13-12, slight advantage Judge. The game-winning home runs, 8th inning or later, I mean, Jose Bautista almost triples Aaron Judge. And the notable pitchers they hit home runs off of, Jose Bautista almost triples Aaron Judge. Now we see in batting average, Jose Bautista slight advantage. On base percentage, we're back to Aaron Judge with a slight advantage. 425 on base to Jose Bautista's 411 on base. Now, Aaron Judge had 19 intentional walks, slight advantage there. Jose Bautista, 14 intentional walks, but Bautista had 10 more actual overall walks. I mean, this is neck and neck, right? This is absolutely neck and neck. The OPS overall, you talk about neck and neck. The OPS for Aaron Judge last season, 1.111. Jose Bautista's, during the stretch we're talking about here, 1.113. 0.002 in Jose Bautista's favor. So none of these things, except maybe the game-winning home runs, that's pretty lofty in Bautista's favor, but everything else is pretty close. But I think, I mean, am I wrong there? I think there's a legitimate case to be made. Certainly, I don't think it's even on the table that there's a better stretch in Toronto Blue Jay franchise history than those 157 games ending 2010, opening 2011 from Jose Bautista. I think, as we just went through it here, what do you think here? I think a case has been made that Bautista's 157 game stretch there, every bit as impressive. Could we make the case it was slightly more impressive even than what we saw last season from Aaron Judge? Coming up on the Locked on Blue Jays podcast, we get into another good-looking pitching matchup tonight as Kevin Gausman takes on Aaron Nola. Of course, that game available on SiriusXM. Now, first I wanted to mention for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. Well, it's the same when it comes to your vehicle, right? All the parts need to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. You just add your ride to My Garage and you look for the green check mark to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. Over 122 million parts to choose from, well, you're going to be back in the game in no time. I mean, after all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Now, on the mound tonight for the 24th time this season, repping the Toronto Blue Jays, Kevin Gausman. Gausman 9-6 on the season, 3.04 ERA. That's the sixth best in all of baseball. But how can you have the sixth best ERA in all of baseball, and in mid-August you only have 9 wins? The Blue Jays are just 12-11 in Gausman starts. How can you have the sixth best ERA in baseball, spin as many gems as Kevin Gausman has spun this season for the Toronto Blue Jays, and the team is only one game over 500? Blue Jay fans know precisely what the issue is. It's the pathetic offense. And as bad as this offense has been in 2023 for the Toronto Blue Jays, it's been at its worst when the long flowing mane, an enviable mane for me, right? Bald head over here. But when Kevin Gausman's been on the mound, it's been at its worst. JP Sears in Oakland, Logan Webb in San Francisco. Those are the two pitchers in all of baseball who have received fewer run support than Kevin Gausman. Kevin Gausman, third worst starting pitcher in all of baseball for run support. The Toronto Blue Jays averaging 3.26 runs per game. He's had, in Gausman starts, Gausman's had 2 starts in August, and the Blue Jays scored 1 run and 1 run. So in August, they're not even up to the pathetic 3.2. I mean, my goodness, my absolute goodness. The Blue Jays have lost 3 of Gausman's last 4 starts at Rogers, and they've won just 2 of Gausman's last 7 starts overall. Now, in those 7 starts, 2 wins with as well as Kevin Gausman's pitching. Well, again, offense looking right at you. 18 total runs in those 7 games, so not even that's barely over 2 runs per game. So not even the pathetic 3 runs per game. My goodness. And I want to mention one of those games was that 9-8 loss to Seattle. So one of those games, they scored 8 runs. So in the other 6 recent games for Kevin Gausman, the Toronto Blue Jays have totaled 10 runs. Oh my goodness. Kevin Gausman has pitched twice as a Toronto Blue Jay against the Philadelphia Phillies. Blue Jays have lost both of those games. Now, watch this now. Kevin Gausman in those 2 games, he's totaled 12 innings pitched, no runs on 8 hits, 2 walks, 17 strikeouts. Both games have been 6 innings, absolute gems by Kevin Gausman, and the Blue Jays have lost both of those games. They lost 4-3 and they lost 2-1. So again, there's 4 runs. So the 4 divided by 2 is 2. So when Gausman faces the Phillies, they average 2 runs. So not even the pathetic 3. Oh my gosh, man. Now, Gausman has been very good on the road. He's been good on the road, I should say, but he's been really good at home. Been good on the road, been really good at home. He's got 69 2/3 innings pitched at Rogers Center, 100 strikeouts. Is that good? Holy cow. Now, for the Phillies, of course, you have the usual power suspects, Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos. Now, they've been very good in their careers against Kevin Gausman, 10 for 34, and 5 of those 10 hits left the ballpark. So, going to have to be very careful there. You know that Bryce Harper is always a matchup you have to worry about and watch. Bryce Harper, 9 for 21. That's a 4.29 average with 5 walks in there as well. So, it's a 5.19 on base percentage in his career versus Kevin Gausman. That's complete domination. Now, there is some complete domination in Gausman's favor. JT Realmuto, just 2 for 16. One of those 2 hits was a home run, but still 2 for 16 with 6 strikeouts. So Gausman has done well in that matchup. And it's funny, tonight's opponent, Aaron Nola, we know we have the universal DH now, but of course Gausman pitched in the National League against the Phillies when there was no universal DH. So Nola actually has 3 at-bats against Kevin Gausman. Gausman did strike out Nola once, but Nola's 2 for 3. You believe that? Nola 2 for 3 against Kevin Gausman. Now, speaking of Aaron Nola, he's 9-8 on the season, 4.49 ERA. Phillies have won 4 of Nola's last 6 road starts. So the Phillies are getting wins when he starts. Now, it is true to say that he's been, significantly better at home than on the road. His ERA is over 5 this season on the road. And he's allowed 26 home runs so far this season, Aaron Nola has, and 18 of those 26 have come on the road. And since the All-Star break as well, by the way, definitely worth mentioning, his ERA just under 5. So the Phillies are winning games he starts. It is true, sort of like last season, 2022 Toronto Blue Jays, as much as Jose Bautista struggled, the Blue Jays still won when they were 23-9 when he started. It's extremely good, right? So that's sort of what we're seeing here with Philly. Nola has big time potential. He's just not put it together, especially recently. Now, this will be his first time ever pitching at the Rogers Center. He has pitched versus the Blue Jays before. It has not gone well for him. He's just 1-2 with an ERA under 5. Now, I will say that, I mean, definitely worth mentioning that the one good start that he did have was this season. It was back in early May against the Blue Jays. What was it? 6 innings pitched. Yeah, 2 runs on 5 hits over 6 innings, 2 walks and 6 strikeouts. And the only bad pitch, the only mistake he made, and it got dealt with. Bo Bichette smashed it. Remember, Bo hit a home run in that game. Well, we know there is no Bo in this game. Now, other Blue Jays, though, that will need to step up today, Brandon Belt, 6 for 13 with a double and a home run in his career against Nola. Kevin Biggio, 2 for 3 against Aaron Nola. And Slim Daddy Vladdy, just 1 for 4, but there are a pair of walks in there, and the one hit was a home run. So hopefully everydayers will know we're always looking for pitching matchups and ballparks. We're always looking for something that gives us cause for optimism, that we could see Dalton Varsho's bat kick-started. Well, hopefully, I mean, we need to see Vladdy's bat kick-started. Are you kidding me? This guy's hitting 241 since the All-Star break. It's about 80 points below. It's 70 to 80 points below where he should be. I mean, to classify it as unacceptable would be an understatement. I'm so far down on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. this season. My goodness, an all-time low. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was going to threaten George Bell and Roy Halladay for my favorite Toronto Blue Jay ever. I am so down on what we've seen from Vlad in 2023. And that includes, by the way, massive steps backwards on defense when a defensive guru like Don Mattingly just walked in the door. I'm going to get off on a tangent here about Vlad. I don't want, that's not what this segment is about, but my goodness. Paul DeYoung, believe it or not, but DeYoung hits Zach Wheeler well. Well, Paul DeYoung has hit Aaron Nola well in his career. Just 3 for 12. That's not great, but there is a home run in there. From Nola, I mean, you're going to see a lot of fastballs. You're going to see a ton of curveballs, probably more curves than anything else. Now, righties are also going to see that hard sinker. He has a cut fastball, and lefties will see Nola's changeup. Now, if you can avoid the fastball, that's ideal, as the other pitches are being hit much better than the heater. The curve in particular, that's the one, whether you're lefty or righty, that's the one to try to pick out today for the Toronto Blue Jays. At the very least, even if you're looking for a different pitch in that moment of the game, in that at-bat, at the very least, you have to have in the back of your mind that you're going to be ready if Nola does hang a curve, because it's happened this season. He's just left those curves spinning, middle of the plate, ready to be dealt with. You need to be ready for the Blue Jays to do damage against any mistake curveballs tonight. The next home run that Aaron Nola allows will tie his career high. This prediction is not for the faint of heart, because this is a light-hitting Blue Jay team. It's since 2014, no team has even come close. No Blue Jay team has even come close to hitting as few home runs as 2023's Blue Jays. But I'm still going to predict that the Blue Jays get 2 home runs off of Aaron Nola tonight and establish a new career worst for Aaron Nola in that category. Now, that is a wrap for Wednesday's Locked On Blue Jays podcast episode. Reminder, you can catch tonight's Blue Jays Phillies tilt on SiriusXM. Now, be sure to tune in tomorrow, as we will be 75% of the way through the 2023 Toronto Blue Jays season at that point. So we're going to deep dive the good, the bad, and the ugly of what we've seen at the 3-quarter mark of the season. Plus, we're going to look at what the remaining 25% of the schedule looks like for the Blue Jays and for their playoff foes like Baltimore, Tampa Bay, Houston, and Seattle. Go Jays, go, and we'll talk tomorrow.